Hello and welcome to Coronacrisis. My name's David Haythornthwaite and I'm the chairman of AFC Fylde. And over the next few weeks and months, I'm hopefully going to take you through what goes on behind the scenes of a non-league football team at times like this. We're going to discuss all the issues regarding behind the scenes, the players, off-field staff, all the things that contribute to the running of the club, and how we're dealing with the issues that are being thrown at us on a daily and weekly basis, so that it gives you a really good insight to the club and the running of clubs in general. So I look forward to you joining me on this journey.
Okay, David, it's great to chat again as we look behind the scenes at AFC Fylde. In this section, we will look at the possible implications of when we will start the season. We know, obviously, you've mentioned it in the past, but you have strong views in terms of the finances of what could come from that.
Yeah. I suppose what I've called the elephant in the room, right from the very beginning, has been the issue of players' contracts, and that's well documented by me in particular. I've talked to other chairmen. It's not being discussed, it doesn't seem, by a lot of other people, but I think it's something that's probably the most important, and it's directly related to the other elephant that's appeared in the room since we started this whole thing, is when the season's going to start, and both of those have huge implications for everyone. I touched on, my previous interview about the fact that I've always felt that if the government advice as it stands today is that we can't have gatherings of people for or until we have a vaccine, which is the current advice, then we could be waiting a long time before football can resume as normal. It's not been helped, that cause, shall we say, by this week, and of course there's always agendas going on, rumbling under people, as I've said before. I'm a Conservative supporter. I'm a Brexit supporter, as everybody knows. And I've been appalled, by the attacks on the government since this whole thing started, and I've said that before. But it's not really an attack on the government. It's a veiled attack because it's by people who are determined to try and reverse a lot of things that happen. They don't like the fact we've got a Conservative government. They don't like the fact that government is pro-Brexit. So we've continually got people trying to undermine it. And one of the things that's reared its ugly head, again, I don't think it's going to go away, is this attempt to blame the government for not shutting down earlier and having the Liverpool Atletico Madrid game and the Cheltenham Festival. And that's come back up again this week. I thought it had disappeared. And so therefore, I think the mayor of Liverpool is saying, well, it was ridiculous, the government let it go on. I know at the time, if they cancelled that game, there would have been uproar and everyone said, how can the government tell us what to do, etc. It's ridiculous, it's a football. But that's what happened. And because that keeps rearing its ugly head, Adam, the government are going to even be more cautious, if you follow my argument, more cautious about reopening football, because if they do, all they're going to do is get blamed. Well, you started coronavirus again because you started too early. So, and they continuously tell us, and I think rightly so, and I believe in that they're following the scientific evidence. Is the scientific evidence, I'm in the science business, I'm in the vet business, is the scientific evidence always right? Of course it isn't always right. It's only right what you think at the time. You can only judge it on the facts you have. So it won't be always right. But the scientific evidence at the moment is telling us we won't have football with crowds until we got a virus. Now, what we have seen, I think, that gives us some hope, is that, no doubt about it, in lots of countries, as they emerge out of coronavirus crisis, then things are going faster than first seemed. And when I was talking, about the fact I've been having Teams calls, wasn't I? I was talking about that my last interview. And we were talking to our manager in Spain yesterday, and it was nice to know that also everyone's critical of their government as well, But one of the things she was telling me about, because Spain is coming out of lockdown, they're all worried it's too fast. So they're telling their government's going too fast. People are saying ours is going too slow. You're damned if you do, damned if you don't. But certainly nowhere have I seen that we're going to have crowds. So I think we can take that as a given, yeah. But we can't wait and just wait and wait and wait. So I've suggested, and quite a number of other people I think are in total agreement, that first of all we need to establish a basic principle, and they need just ask all the league again. Go back to the chairman. One question: do you want to start with crowds, or do you not want to start with crowds? It's a simple question, isn't it? And I can tell you, everybody is going to vote. We don't want to start without crowds, because how can we start without crowds? In our league, I've explained before, there's no chance of doing streaming at our level. Not cost effective. There's not enough people want to watch it. So we have zero income. We've got zero season tickets, zero sponsorship income, zero hospitality, and zero. They're all zeros. And all we've got is costs. So we cannot possibly start. So that's the first thing. Let's have that vote. Having had that vote, I've then suggested is that we then need to put in place a date at which we start. And I suggest that date is January, first week of January. Yeah. And if we start in the first week of January, we could get the league complete by June, possibly July. Yeah. It would give a very short break before we start next season, but we could get it done. Now, the implication of that, as you and I discussed a little bit, is that, and again I've suggested this, is that for next season, if that was to happen, there would be no involvement of our level in the FA Cup or the FA Trophy. No involvement whatsoever. So that would be sad. I love the FA Cup. This year we had a great run, as you know. We made a lot of money out of it. So we'd lose all that revenue. The FA Trophy, not this year, but last year, the year before we won it, we're going to be, again, one of the only teams who've held it for 2 years. Another trivia question in the future. But we have to sacrifice that. It makes sense to me to sacrifice that to have a proper league season, or try and have a proper league season. So you can't have those cup games if you're going to have the FA Cup and the FA Trophy. So that's the suggestion I've made to them. First of all, let's have a vote on whether or not we want to start with or without crowds. Once we've established that, then when do we want to start the season? And the reason we're going to put a date is because we need to know what to plan for. So I've had a conversation with my chief exec this morning, John T. Castle. He's been furloughed since the first of the month. So is Jim Bentley, a manager, and everybody in the club, as I've told you about. And John T. said, well, what's going to happen next month? Are we going to be furloughed? And I said, yeah. I said, I think, John T., take it. You're probably going to be furloughed June. You're probably going to be furloughed July. I haven't got as far as August, but you probably will be furloughed in August. So it's, to me, a decision that needs to be made so we can plan. And it's also really, really important for footballers, because, and you know that I've been critical of them about money. About the fact is that players at a lot higher league have refused to take, and still refuse to take, pay cuts, which are quite capable of taking them. I've been a little critical of some of my own team. I'm sure they haven't all been happy about it. I've tried to be honest. But at the same time, I also have concerns for those players, because I've got 4 players that are going to be leaving our club on July the 1st, out of contract, and nobody is going to offer them a contract. And we're not going to sign anybody on a contract after July the 1st. We've got our squad. I think we've got too many. I think we've got 11 players on contract. I wish I had 3 or 4, but we got 11. And so we're committed to pay those players throughout the summer till the season starts. But we're not going to sign any more. So we're going to have hundreds of footballers who don't have a job. Not we're going to go, as I've suggested. I think I said that, people who maybe were making 1,200, the number's going to start with a 7, if you remember. That number's going to start with a 0, Adam. A 0. So, look, we can't just, like with any unemployed people, we've got to try and do something about that. And, one of the suggestions that I'd made and discussed with John T is that what we could maybe do in this circumstance is say, look, and I'm just using numbers, we'll sign you July the 1st, but we can just give you some pocket money. Pocket money to me is just some living money. So maybe we'll pay you £250 a week. If the game then starts, let's say be optimistic. The game starts November the 1st with no crowds. Let's say that's the decision. As soon as it's no crowds, we'll pay you £500 a week because we're playing again and you're doing a job, because we're paying you £250, but you're not doing anything. And you're free under the furlough scheme to go and supplement that income. Do you follow me? When we've got a crowd, we'll pay you full wage, £750. That's the proposal I put together, put forward as maybe a way that it's a halfway house to try and maybe allow us to sign some. We're on unusual times. So that was one of the suggestions that I put together. We haven't done anything on that yet, because I think John T and Jim's view is quite rightly they're furloughed. They've had to pay slashed 40%, and so their view is, and quite rightly, well, why are we going to put some more people on the payroll when you can't pay me? And that's not an unreasonable statement, is it? You're in the same boat, Adam. A lot of people are. So unless we come to some decisions, we can't though find ways to help those people and find a way forward till that time. And that's why it's critical that we decide, are we going to play without Gates? And secondly, when are we going to start? So critical.
I don't think anyone can doubt your passion and love for the level as well. You care about the non-league. The worry, I think, for everyone is that clubs will struggle and potentially go out of business. I know, obviously, referring back to the handbook again, there is a certain rule in there you feel passionate about in terms of potential administration.
Yeah, I've written, and I talked about this some time ago. At one stage, maybe 6 weeks ago, it was muted. The whole championship. They were trying to get the whole championship to agree to a mass bankruptcy. So everybody went out of business, and if they all went out of business, the FA couldn't do much about it. And then they'd all start again to get rid of the debt. It never happened because it was difficult to get a consensus. But the rules we now go to rules, not particularly the Articles of Association. But when we get to 13 of the rules, it's insolvency provisions, and there's, as you would imagine, a lot of pages on that. A lot of pages talking about insolvency. So that everybody understands the rules, it's quite important, is that apart from getting points deduction, you cannot start up again and just get rid of your debt. So if I'm in a normal business, say my business, thank God I haven't had to go to bankruptcy. I had a couple of times where I was close in my early career, but I haven't been there. But I know a lot of people who have, so I kind of know a little bit how it works. And if you go into insolvency, they have today what's called a pre-pack. People who in business will know about this. It's an American thing that we adopted. So effectively, what you agree is you're going to go out of business and you're going to sell it back effectively to the same people because they know how to run the business. It's been decided over the years, it's really controversial as a pre-pack, it's been decided that it's probably better to give them a chance to go and pay back some creditors and just let the whole thing go to the wall. Still very controversial, this pre-pack. A lot of people use it in a bad way. But it's not a bad in certain circumstances. And I've suggested to them that they need to change their insolvency rules, because their insolvency rules say that if you go out of business and you start up again as a club, you have to take care of all your football debts. You still have to take care of all your football debts. So let's say you've got 4 players on contract and they've got a 2-year contract, and that value of that contract is 60,000. Let's just say 30,000 a year, not a lot in our league. They're on a 2-year contract, you got 4 of them, it's £250,000. If you start up that club and you take it over, you're still responsible for paying that debt. In a normal business, everybody takes 10p in the pound. So I've suggested to them that they need to, in these circumstances, look at their insolvency rules so that it could allow clubs who and you'd have to present your case. You know, I'm not just saying everyone can go, shall we say, willy-nilly just go bankrupt. You'd have to present your case, but I think it should be allowed if people are in a serious position, are unable to negotiate with their creditors, and their creditors in this case are the players who have these long-term contracts. Because as we know, we've been told now by the government that starting August the 1st, we're going to start paying the owners of businesses, football clubs, going to start paying 25% of the salary. And they're going to start paying the national insurance, which we'd never been paid before. That's just the start of it. And remember, I suggested that would happen. We can't go on forever paying 80%. So it's going to come crunch time, because I'm going to have some conversations with my players, aren't I? I'm going to have some conversations with my staff and say, look, guys, and what the government are concerned about is that this will force a lot of people who maybe been hanging on because the government's been paying everything to start making people redundant. In football, and this is back to the elephant in the room, we can't do that because they're all on contracts, and you can't get out those contracts unless we change the rules. And for those guys listening who are footballers, you know, guys, please don't think that, you know, I'm trying to rip your contracts up, or I'm just trying to give you the reality of the situation. The reality of the situation. There has to be some sort of levelling out. The government, I don't think, are going to give us any money. As you know, I don't think they should. I think they've given us enough with the furlough. The Premier League aren't going to give us a penny. They're a disgrace. They're the ones that should be helping. Yeah? They're the ones that should be helping. So there's no money. The only money is from gate money. There isn't going to be any gate money. There isn't going to be sponsorship money. So the only money that's going to come is from people like me. And at every club, there isn't people like me. There isn't people like me. There's only a handful of them that are putting a lot of money in. So those clubs are going to be in serious problem. And therefore, that's why I've asked them to look at that insolvency section to allow clubs, I think, would be fair. I certainly wouldn't object if I heard of our club going into insolvency in that circumstance. I think it would be fair, and I think there should be an exception for these exceptional circumstances.
Thank you for explaining.